beat drums the dock to life.
So I'm Fred McMurray. It's time for another episode of Cargo Chronicles by Harbor Freight Transport. Eric Trout, our friend from Harbor Freight Transport, back after his world travels. Eric, how was China?
Japan, Tokyo.
Japan. Okay, it's somewhere over there.
It was amazing. I'm a big history buff, right? So, I love World War II history, and just to see the resiliency of, that country and the way that they rebuilt and everything. Tokyo is an absolutely fabulous city, so orderly. And if you're a transportation geek like myself, I tell you, the metro and the JR line train system that they have in Tokyo, it is absolutely unbelievable. It runs within a 15-second on-time schedule. So I read something. They only had one incident. I think it was in 2024, and a train departed 25 seconds too early. And so it inconvenienced people, and the CEO of JR Line had to make a formal apology to all the Tokyo citizens. So it's an unbelievably beautiful city.
How was the food?
It was excellent. I mean, more food than it's food literally stacked on top of food. And if you watch all those TikToks and YouTube channels about 7-Eleven and the quality of their fast food, it's all absolutely true. It is amazing. 7-Eleven has some of the best food, convenient food in Asia. It's unbelievable.
So we'll be starting up a travel podcast soon?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Love to.
I mean, how many places you've been over the past year?
Yeah. Well, keep going, right? Keep going.
All right. So we have a guest today, Jason Muir of Western Fumigation. And anybody listening now has got to be wondering what Cargo Chronicles and fumigation have to do with each other. I got to believe. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks, Fred. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. And yeah, a lot of people probably don't realize the role of fumigation in import-export business, but happy to share.
So tell us a bit about Western Fumigation.
Of course. So Western Fumigation's been in business just about 100 years, 98 years to be exact. And we are a full-service fumigation company, everything from import-export business to residential and commercial services. We have a great innovations team as well to bring on new fumigants. And we're a key cog in the import-export business, working directly along with USDA for import-export goods that require fumigation, whether on the import side or for the exporting to different countries, depending on the goods and the time of year that they're going there.
Wow, that's a lot. So somebody's bugging me. I should call you. No, sorry, wrong.
Yeah.
So, what types of commodities, freight require fumigation?
It's a good question. So we'll start with the import side. A lot of the produce that comes to the United States requires fumigation. So we currently have the largest single-use fumigation facility in the world, which is actually in New Jersey, where we fumigate Chilean grapes and other produce that comes from South America. So that's all required and oversaw by USDA, who we are partnered with. And we do large-scale fumigations for 4 or 5 months out of the year. We're fumigating anywhere between 6 to 8 football fields worth of Chilean table grapes.
That's a lot of grapes.
Yes. So we are the largest fumigator of Chilean table grapes. Beyond that, there's citrus fruits that require it. And we also work directly with USDA when they ever have what they call an intercept or an emergency fumigation, where they're inspecting cargo and it's coming in. They find an invasive species insect on it. They get it identified potentially by them or by us, and then that needs to be treated as well.
So, Eric, in your time in the industry, what have you seen? What products have you normally seen needed fumigation?
Yeah, so I mean, basically anything that we ship to Australia, I want to say the fumigation period is like April through September. Australia has some very, very stringent fumigation requirements, in particular the stink bug, right? Australia has the world's deadliest everything, right? The last thing they want is an American stink bug, right? So basically, all cargo during a certain period of time has to go that we are exporting to Australia has to be fumigated. We on the import side, talking about emergency fumigation, throughout my 28 years in this industry, it's you see everything. You see wet, damaged cartons. I've seen infestations into cartons. You got to look at where things are being sourced. Cambodia, Vietnam, hot, humid environments, right, that are just absolutely ripe for breeding and infestation. So I've experienced more on the import side where you crack open an ocean container and you see an infestation, and then you're calling Jason and team and saying, hey, listen, need your help here, right? Because I'm not going to touch this. And it runs the gambit. I've seen scorpions, I've seen poisonous spiders, I've seen bee colonies, in the corner castings of ocean containers, you name it. But it's one of those things in the industry. A lot of people, it's moving products from point A to point B, but people don't pay a lot of attention to the fumigation aspect of it, right? And it's a critical cog in the international logistics for sure.
All right. So what about, because I was in Chicago last week, and it was like really, really hot and humid. So when you said that, I started to think about stuff being shipped from Chicago, and would you fumigate that? Never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was really hot and really humid. Didn't wear a
Yeah.
hoodie all week. All right, Jason. So most shippers allegedly don't think about fumigation until it's required. What are the most common situations you see that Eric said bees in the corner, but what types of shipments do you normally see need, or the most common situations that need fumigation? Or is it just we're going to fumigate everything?
No, it's a good question. So on the import side, it's pretty regimented by USDA. They know when things are coming in that are susceptible and potentially have invasive species. So there's some requirements there. It's really the export side that's become more tricky because every country has its own regulations and what they want, what gas is required at what dosage over what period of time. And some of them even require a phytosanitary certificate issued by USDA. So it really takes somebody who's doing this every day. This isn't a side hustle for any company. They need to know the regulations. And if they don't know them, they need to know how to get them. And then you have to have staff that understands the different treatments. I mean, I think Eric brought up a great point about Australia. They have a season for BMSB fumigations that 100% of cargo going to Australia and New Zealand at that time needs to be treated. And those treatments are incredibly regulated, so much so that the Australian government, under their DAFT program, DAFT, has to pre-approve fumigators in the United States. And we go through a really rigorous process to be approved by them. So much so that they take pictures of all of our equipment, all the way down to a circulating fan that you might pay $35 for. Extension cords get logged. Everything is logged so that the treatments are done properly at the right temperatures for the right exposure time, so that they don't have any stink bugs going into their country. And being really compliant and following the regulations are super important for the industry.
So you used the word the phytosanitary, which was actually one of my next question of how does phytosanitary requirements affect importers? What do people who are shipping need to know to avoid the costly delays?
Yeah. So it's a lot of times what happens is the shippers, the importers, exporters, they don't realize that something is going to need fumigation until they're already into the weeds. And a lot of times that leads you into, who do I call immediately that can help me? Who actually answers the phone? And it sounds kind of odd, but we have a really good system where you can call in at any time. You might not get me immediately, but if you send a request in, I answer all of our requests within an hour. And when somebody's in a jam for a phyto certificate, we know we got to get this treated within 48 hours, because they're going to pay demurrage or per diem on the box, on the chassis. And that's really the secret sauce, is being available at all times for all of these different solutions. We have over 35 people on staff every day that this is all we do, is fumigation and keeping compliant. We have a great working relationship with USDA in multiple markets, and they are key in getting your phytosanitary certificates post fumigation as well.
So Eric, I love this word phytosanitary because it's like a new word for me. So I'm going to use it everywhere to confuse people. What's been I'm going to say the most memorable event or happenstance, whatever you want to call it, of issues with a phytosanitary certificate that you've seen?
As Jason said, it's really the delay, right? If you're using somebody, to do your fumigation, you got to make sure that they are, responsive for sure, right? Because, a lot of times, well, 9 times out of 10, you're taking the ocean container to an offsite fumigation facility, right? You have to drop it there. And if there's not a good line of communication, every time you do that, there's transportation costs just to take it to a separate facility. Then you've got to, send somebody back out, for the pickup. So a bobtail charge. But then you have the chassis charges adding up on a daily basis. You have container yard storage adding up. So, you can quickly get into the thousands of dollars of charges, right? So if your fumigator is not responsive and getting that information, hey, this is complete, this is done, here's your certifications, come pick it up. It's time is money, right? And like Jason said, 9 times out of 10, people who get into this, right, they're in the game way too late, right? So it's a reactive approach versus a proactive approach. And that's transportation and logistics, man. When the clock's ticking and dollars are being spent, everybody emotions get high. And so I wouldn't say I have any one given event. It's just every single one, right? And when you can't get the answers and you can't get the information, it's extremely frustrating, right? And people get animated, let's say.
So
that.
what I heard you say is, if you can't get the information, you really get bugged.
Exactly. Yes.
Sorry,
Yeah.
this is I can't.
And you have to pester. Yeah.
Ooh, good one. I love it. All right. So, Jason, what do you wish that most shippers and brokers knew about fumigation? What's the biggest misconceptions?
Uh, Great question. So, the United States specifically has many different markets, and the biggest thing I would tell everybody is the regulations specific to the Northeast, where there's incredible shipping lines, whether it's Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York, New Jersey, they are the most regulated states when it comes to fumigation. And unfortunately, a lot of shippers just think this can happen immediately on whatever site, wherever they want it. And that's just not the case. New Jersey has very strict regulations on where and when fumigation can happen. And I wish all the shippers understood that, because it creates a headache. And we have specific permits that allow us to do certain jobs at certain times under certain circumstances. And frequently we get asked to, let's say, bend the rules for a client. And I wish that they understand that, we are heavily regulated and we don't bend the rules. We follow things by the book to keep them within compliance.
Eric, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bad actors out there, right? And
A lot of pests.
yeah, a lot of people trying to cut corners and do it outside the regulations. And my only advice to you is don't do it, right? Yeah, you might get away with it one time, but don't be uh, penny wise pound poor for sure, because if you're doing something that's not within regulations, eventually it's going to catch up to you, right? And that's when you can have your license revoked as a freight forwarder. You can face some extremely stiff fines. So you know you need to have a compliance department who understands the regulations, for importing, exporting, what needs to be fumigated and what's not. If not, if you don't have a compliance department, then reach out to somebody like Jason, right? And Western Fumigation. They've got the answers for sure that can help you.
Okay, so my next question's to Jason. How does Western Fumigation coordinate with freight brokers and carriers, warehouses, all the people that are involved in, getting my coffee into my cup?
Well, so seeing that this is probably your fifth or sixth cup of coffee, it's crucial that we do that. And that comes down to a couple different ways. So we are a member of the Freight Forwarders Association, NCBFAA, and we go to the conference every year. We have a vendor table there to provide information. And the other part is we have a lot of partnerships in the industry. And we work with different groups, Cocoa Merchants Association and NCA, which is the National Green Coffee Association of Importers. We work with large food processing companies that all kind of have us and know us. We've been doing this for a long time. So our reputation is out there that we're going to keep you compliant. And when you need us, we're available. That's the key part. Now, sometimes, people will get to us from our website, and that's great too. But most of our business, over 90% of our business, comes from referrals. So it's, that somebody else had a really good experience, had a good inspection from myself or somebody on our team that gave them great information that probably saved them from some fines or fees or extra costs. You asked about a phytosanitary certificate before, and I'll tell you, a good story came to mind where we had a client that ships oak logs to China and requires some really special equipment, requires heavyweight chassis and all this kind of work. It's a long fumigation process, upwards of 5 days. And when these were loading in the container, one of these logs rolled in the container. And these logs are incredibly heavy. You're looking at cargo weight of over 55,000 pounds. And it buckled the side of the container, which is not uncommon. I'm sure Eric's seen this before. And that container could not go back into the port. It was so heavy that nobody wanted to dray it around because it's out of shape. So relying on a partner that went through and straightened that container, moved the log and straightened the container. So having a partner like Harbor Freight or some other great trucking companies out there that can help solve a problem when you don't even know that could exist. That problem could have costed the customer tens of thousands of dollars. Instead, it cost them hundreds of dollars because people had the right resources and the right connections to fix the problem.
Wow. Who knew you could buckle a distend a container? All right. So you said you guys have been in business for over 100 years, and Harbor Freight Transport's been in business for over 70. Um, what changes or trends in the industry have you seen in recent years that have changed how fumigation services are delivered?
Great. I think the biggest change has been the regulatory changes that have happened over the last maybe 10 years or so, where small companies, in terms of import-export business, can no longer exist. We have seen several small to medium-sized fumigation companies close because they cannot keep up with the regulations and the compliance that's going on. So it's really taken the market from maybe a few hundred players nationwide to there's maybe 6 or 7 big players that handle most of the import-export fumigations that happen in the U.S. just because of the compliance and regulatory concerns in each different city and state that's required.
Okay. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, global trade, new markets, opening up, new regulations. Absolutely. I mean, it was devastating in New York and New Jersey. There were two fumigators who were on the smaller side, and they went out of business, right? And it left the shipping community really in a bad position, right? And we were seeing instances where we would have cargo delivered to us by our clients, and it requires fumigation. But when those players went out of business, we were having to ship cargo all the way down to our Savannah, Georgia facility just to get it fumigated, right? So, just to bolster what Jason said, the smaller, more nimble type people where you used to be able to rely on them for a quick turnaround. They can't compete anymore just because of the new regulations, right? And you think about trade compliance, and the regulations that are out there. You really have to have a dedicated team who's just that's what they do. They breathe it day in and breathe it day out, right? And the smaller guys, unfortunately, can't compete with that, right?
Okay, so something you just said, I got to wonder about breathing in pesticide day in and out. That just sounds like it's a bad idea. Okay, so we won't go there. Jason, looking ahead, what technologies or innovations do you see that are changing the future of fumigation and supply chain compliance?
Man, what a great question. So there's a couple big things on the horizon. A lot of our suppliers of the products that we use, places like Douglas Products, Intech Organics, Lifotech, and Cardinal Products, all work together with us on innovation. We're one of the first companies that now offer organic fumigation services as well, using high dose IGI CO2, where we can fumigate an organic product and it keeps the organic seal, USDA organic seal, during our process. So that's something that's really changed. And now we're seeing that USDA on imports and exports are going to more remote monitoring of the fumigant levels. So during the fumigation, normally we would take readings, and now it's all being done remotely. So those sensors are out there and data is available immediately on the spot, which is pretty new to an old school industry that used to write things down with pen and paper every day. and sign off on something with some initials. Now it's all handled by computers and iPad and laptops, and reports are generated immediately. There's no delay in time anymore like there used to be. So that's really made a kind of a change in the compliance world, is having data immediate. Goes to what Eric said about clients needing these certificates, even almost before the fumigation's completed. And that's where it gets really tricky for an importer or exporter, that they need that certificate. And if we don't have this remote monitoring and digital trends, it could take a couple of days to get that to them, where we're really striving to have it immediately once the fumigation's completed, their certificates are generated.
So, Eric, how do these innovations help harbor freight transport?
I mean, without the information, we're dead in the water. So just the speed of getting that information helps the operation flow more smoothly. On the data side, when you have that information right at your fingertips, versus having to wait, like Jason said, faxes, written stuff, written reports. It just speeds everything up and really makes the process flow a lot better, for sure.
Faxes, wow. Old school. Okay, Jason, what's as we wrap up here, two questions. One, what is it one thing that, or what do you want people to know about Western Fumigation? And two, how do people get a hold of you?
Okay, so great question. Western Fumigation started off as a large family-owned company. And now I like to say, we still operate as a large mom and pop company. We just have a really rich uncle that helps us get through different times. So when you call our office and you get somebody on our team, whether it's myself, one of the ladies up front, or a supervisor, you're getting a real person that cares about your work. And you can't say that about every company. It's not just that we're doing a job. We really care about our customers and our potential customers, because we know what it feels like to be a customer that wasn't taken care of. You go to Walmart or you go to McDonald's and you get something that you just didn't expect, and it's kind of that bad experience. We don't want you to have that. And we go above and beyond to make sure things are done right. And that's where I think it's really important to understand kind of our relationship, is that we care. That's what I would say. And to get a hold of us, it's pretty simple. You could certainly call my cell phone, which is on all hours of the day, at 856-580-7059. You can email me at any time, which is jason.muir@westernpest.com. Or you can read some articles that we've written on our website at www.westernfumigation.com. And if you like the socials, I'm not a Facebook or Instagram guy, but I post some pretty cool stuff on LinkedIn about some of the work that we do. So you can catch us on LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. To our world traveler, Eric, what's a new thing that people need to know from your travels and what Harbor Freight Transport's doing?
Well, we can't disclose, the upcoming events, but we are working on a solution for the shipping community up in the Northeast.
Ooh.
To streamline some of those fumigation needs. So hopefully in the near future, there will be some information coming out about that. And, Harbor Freight will, as always, as we've done for the last 79 years, support our clients any way, shape, or form. We are solutions driven.
Excellent. And I'm Fred McMurray, and this has been another episode of Cargo Chronicles. Thanks to our guest, Jason Muir from Western Fumigation. And as always, our friend from Harbor Freight Transport, Eric Trout. Who knew that there was so many bugs in shipping? I didn't. Be back again next week with another